All right, let's jump right into this explainer and unpack the massive Xbox server outage that literally brought gamers to a staggering, complete standstill. Picture this, okay? You've had a long day. It's July 27th, 2026. You flop down on the couch, grab your controller, ready to just zone out with some games for the evening. But instead, you find yourself staring at an endless, unyielding error screen. So, today we're going to break down exactly what happened during this catastrophic blackout. We'll look at the hard data on who was affected and explore the absolutely fascinating, and honestly, sometimes pretty hilarious, ways the community reacted to a day without their digital libraries.
Can you play anything yet? Man, that was the desperate question author Craig Reed posed over on the community site Pure Xbox, and it perfectly echoed what the entire gaming community was asking as their screens just went completely dark. It sounds like such a simple question, right? But the answer turned out to be incredibly complicated, super frustrating, and honestly, a real eye-opener for the future of game ownership.
So let's set the scene here and look at the timeline. On July 27th, the Xbox servers flat out crashed. And look, this wasn't just some minor hiccup in matchmaking or a slow download speed that you could just sleep off. No, this was a catastrophic failure that halted gameplay across the entire ecosystem. It left thousands of players completely stranded, staring at their TVs, literally unable to access the media they paid good money for.
Section 1. The Xbox Server Blackout.
To really wrap our heads around just how deep this server failure went into the core of the console experience, we got to look at the numbers. We are talking thousands of players caught in the crossfire here. Based on the furious reports just flooding into forums and social media, so many players couldn't even sign into their Xbox profiles. The front door was just locked. And for those lucky few who actually managed to squeeze past the login screen, well, they quickly hit a massive digital brick wall the absolute second they tried to launch a game.
The technical impact of this was truly staggering. We're talking about a total, systemic shutdown. Now, you usually expect cloud gaming or multiplayer to go down during an outage, right? But this time, players faced a total lockdown of their local installed libraries. Games sitting right there on their hard drives were totally inaccessible. Even Quick Resume, you know, that awesome feature that keeps games suspended in the console's memory? Yeah, that flat out refused to work. But the craziest part? The thing that really caught everyone off guard? Even physical, disc-based games were completely locked out. No way, right?
Which brings us to Section 2, the physical media paradox.
Look, you'd reasonably assume that owning a physical disc is your ultimate fail-safe against an internet outage. You buy the disc, you put it in the drive, you play the game. That's the expectation. But the reality of July 27th shattered that illusion entirely. It brilliantly, and kind of painfully, illustrates how modern gaming infrastructure ties even physical media to constant live server checks. When the Xbox network went down, the console just couldn't verify ownership, resulting in server errors that blocked physical games right alongside the digital ones. Talk about a massive wake-up call.
Craig Reed actually captured this paradox perfectly on Pure Xbox. He said he initially felt really bad for owners of the all-digital Xbox Series S, figuring they were getting the absolute worst of it since they don't even have a disk drive. But he quickly realized that whether you are on a digital-only Series S or a premium Series X with a game sitting right there in the disk drive, the error screen was exactly the same. The playing field was entirely level. While the servers were down, your expensive disk was basically just a plastic coaster.
Let's move right along to Section 3, polling the player base.
Now, stories are great, but hard numbers show us the true footprint of this whole mess. Pure Xbox ran a community poll right in the heat of the blackout, pulling in 928 votes. This data is fantastic because it tracks the real-time chaos. The responses gave us a huge spectrum of the fallout, ranging from a few lucky folks who had zero issues, all the way to a massive, very vocal group shouting, "I can't even sign in." It just highlights a heavily fractured user experience where the servers were seemingly denying access completely at random.
They also ran a follow-up poll, specifically targeting those physical media owners we just talked about. 511 votes on this one. And the results? Stark. The overwhelming response to "Can you play your physical games?" was a massive resounding nope. This hard data confirmed the widespread failure of disc-based play across the entire player base. It proved that Craig Reed's frustrating experience was definitely the rule, not the exception. The whole physical media workaround simply wasn't working.
Moving to Section 4, community reactions and fixes.
You know, gamers are nothing if not resourceful, and some found some pretty unique coping mechanisms for being shut out. When asked how much the outage was affecting them, user Only Box Matters just went straight into pure psychological denial. They said they refused to believe it was real, claiming it's all about the mindset. Honestly, when multi-billion-dollar server infrastructure goes down, sometimes humor is literally the only working feature you've got left.
Then you had user Op69, leaning heavily into the humor of being forced offline, making that classic gamer joke about finally going outside. They reported back to the forum confirming that yes, the grass is real, I repeat, the grass is real, which actually prompted a brilliant reply from Craig, the author, who jokingly asked if the user had access to physical grass. It's just a great example of the community bonding over a shared, totally ridiculous annoyance.
But hey, not everyone was in a joking mood. User Guy in PA75 took to the forums to passionately defend physical media, calling digital media an outright scam. What's absolutely fascinating about this debate, especially given the data we just looked at, is the intense philosophical divide this sparked. Even though we know for a fact that disks were actively failing during this exact outage, the loyalty to the idea of physical ownership remains incredibly strong for a lot of players.
People did find some actual functional workarounds, though. Some truly creative pivots happened here. Craig Reed figured out he could still play Replaced using the Xbox for PC app, bypassing the console entirely. Others fired up original Xbox and 360 emulators, which gracefully didn't need those modern live check-ins. Some folks just resigned to watching YouTube, which worked perfectly fine. And in one highly specific absolute victory, a user managed to download an update from Metal Slug 3, boot it up, and actually beat the entire game while the rest of the network was literally burning to the ground around them.
Okay, but what if you were just totally desperate to play those physical discs sitting on your shelf? Well, user Sindale dropped a real game changer of a workaround in the comments. It was a two-step process. Step 1, set your console as your home Xbox in the settings. Step 2, disconnect the console entirely from the internet. Literally unplug the Ethernet cable or make it forget your Wi-Fi. Just think about the irony of that for a second. To play a game you physically own, you had to intentionally sever your console's connection to the outside world, stopping it from attempting the failed server check, just so the disc could finally spin up and play. You basically had to hide your console from its own network. Which leaves us with one final, absolutely vital question to wrap up this explainer. If a routine server outage can temporarily lock you out of a piece of plastic you bought at a store, who truly has control over the game sitting on your shelf? As our hardware relies more and more on the cloud, the line between owning a game and just renting a license is getting thinner by the day. Seriously, think about that the next time you pop a disc into your console. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and hey, keep your networks connected until you absolutely have to pull the plug.